Hi, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Epstein Hitting Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Episode 138, back again with another brand new episode. And our main topic, moving a hitter's feet. Pitchers trying to move a hitter's feet. How do hitters counteract that? We'll talk about it today. So let me bring in professional evaluator, successful business owner, my former coach, current day coach, a renowned coach, friend, and co-host, Jake Epstein. Did I mention he's a player evaluator? And now he's texting me. What was the text here? Hold on. Check this out. He texted me before we started the show, and I said, on my way. And he said, LFG. That means in Tom Brady language, let's fucking go. So I don't know if you were very excited or mad or what, but
I was ready, man. I've been ready all day, just waiting to speak with you.
Because apparently it's snowing in Colorado today as we record this on a Saturday afternoon, and it's like 82 degrees with humidity in Tampa, Florida.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, does it though? The humidity? I don't know about that.
Well, we'll take it. My hands are cracking. It's so dry here. Yeah,
I hate that.
It was nice early in the week, and then sports weekend. Now all of a sudden it decides to. Thank you, intern.
Was that the intern that was supposed to be? She just, if for those not watching, handed him a glass of water. Was that the intern that was supposed to be playing softball today?
Yeah, was supposed to be playing softball today, but 2 inches of snow will put a damper on all that.
Instead, she's getting her father, acting as an intern, getting her father water for our stupid podcast.
She's having a great day. We're just having a great day. Luckily, her grandmother's in town, so that's kind of fun for her.
And she can't even watch the Rockies because they're not very good this year.
No, nobody wants to watch the Rockies. Most people in Colorado were like boycotting the Rockies and ownership because they really don't care. We would love to have the new Broncos owner buy the Rockies so that they would at least spend and field a team,
right?
Versus do nothing in the offseason.
What I wonder what Chris Bryant is feeling right now. He has to be like, God, no. Damn it! What did
he knew what he was getting into.
I hope he did because I mean it's not getting. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. In my opinion, with the Rockies right now, there's no light at the end of the tunnel.
No, they were hoping to finish above 500. That was their goal this year. That's a goal.
Yeah,
to start the season was to be above 500 in the National League West. So yeah, I will say that Chris Bryant is doing quite well. He's doing okay here the first couple weeks of the season. He's still healthy, but yeah,
CJ Cron's off to a pretty good start too. No,
he is. Yeah, I think he had another home run last night. But it's just there's too many holes, and they have some good guys in there, and they're learning how to play baseball. And at some point, those guys that are learning how to play baseball will likely get traded to other organizations, and the whole cycle will end. The whole cycle will keep going. The Arenado cycle, the Story cycle. All their prospects that come up, they come through, they get traded for other prospects. Those guys come up for a couple of years, do well, then they get rid of those. So it's how they make money. I will say the Rockies make money. They have a nice stadium. They have good weather in the summer. People like to go to the ballpark. They keep their payroll down, and people still show up. So those guys make their $80 million a year. And thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. What's it? Wham bam. See you later, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Wham bam.
Thank you, ma'am. Right. That's what that's what the Rockies and their fan base apparently. I have to give you credit, by the way. Giancarlo Stanton. They showed. Thank you for what?
The credit you're about to give me. I'm going to take it when you say it. I'm going to take it.
Right. Well, Giancarlo Stanton. There's a picture that surfaced on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, actually, and it showed that I don't know. I guess it was a sticker on the knob of his bat. That he swings a 35.5 ounce bat. Yeah. And I want to give you credit because you talked about this with your dad years ago and you still talk about it to this day. And it breaks that myth of players not swinging heavy bats. They do swing or heavier bats. That gives them that opportunity, that velocity, that quickness and speed, that velocity. Again, it's all science, kids, right? Gives them that velocity and speed to hit that fast bat. I'm not a science nerd here, but
it's
hit the baseball hit the baseball fast and to be able to create that backspin and hit it very, very far. It's exactly what Giancarlo Stanton does. And boy, does he generate that back quickness and bat speed with that 35.5 ounce bat.
Yeah, big, strong guy can swing a big bat. The guys that aren't that big obviously can't swing a bat, but you have to find as a hitter, you have to find what works for you. Is a heavier bat better? People never think that. They never think heavier is better. Sometimes we use our body more when we use a heavier bat. We see at a young age when I'm working with players, in softball especially, because the bats are so light, they drop 10s, sometimes drop 11s at the younger age, but the softball is still heavy. Softball's still the same size, whether you're 18 or 20 years old or you're 10 years old. And what happens is the ball just has way more mass than the bat. And so if you don't hit it perfectly, if you're a quarter of an inch or an eighth of an inch below or above the ball, it stops the bat, and then the bat moves up or down a lot. You see that with baseball players too at a young age until you get to like a drop 3, and then there's enough momentum. So you got to figure out, are you strong enough to swing a heavier bat? And what's great about hit tracks and all the different devices that measure the ball speed is, let's try a heavier bat. Let's try a lighter bat. How does it come off? Are you more consistent? Do you use your body more? Is it too heavy? Did you see a decrease or an increase in exit velocity? Are you seeing you're hitting the ball higher and further? You have to, it is an art form, just like golfers go through that same kind of thing. What are the right lofts or the right ball, the right club? And we just have to figure out it's not all the same for every single player. I've had a player that was swinging a metal bat that was like a 32-29. And then I said, well, why don't you swing, he had a wood bat that was bigger. It was a 33-30. I said, why don't you swing that? He actually swung the heavier bat harder on blast. So not only was his bat speed higher with a heavier bat, that doesn't make any sense except for leverage and whip. So he created whip in his swing, but the exit velocity. And he was like, I never would have thought about that. I said, yeah, now imagine it's a metal bat. That's a 33-30. You're probably going to get a little bit extra, exit velocity off that too. So try different sizes, people. It's okay. Big, small, doesn't matter. Try, see what works best for you.
How do they know what works best for them, though? Is there certain data points that they can point to?
Using the hit tracks will tell you, or am I hitting the ball harder? Okay, wow. Now I took 10 swings and my hardest ball was 2 miles an hour harder than with my other bat. Okay, that's telltale number one. But that has to be not just off a tee. That has to be off of somebody throwing, or I like to use a machine. So there's some velocity there, because we might be able to swing it harder off a tee, but can we swing it harder when the ball is moving, 80 miles an hour, 85 miles an hour? So you just have to test it. That's the best thing I can do. Borrow a buddy's bat. It's okay.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own bat now. We all used the same bat when I was growing up.
Right. That big metal hunk of shit.
Yeah, right. It was like, oh, somebody's got a new bat. Let's all use that. Oh, it's got so many hits in it. So yes,
right.
Just try different bats, people on your team, bigger, smaller, and see what works.
Did I ever tell you that story of a teammate I had in high school? He had those Nike aluminum bats. Remember those Nike aluminum bats in like the late 2000s decade, like 2006 to 2010. Those they were, you felt like they were made of Teflon because so many of them cracked. Well, I ended up cracking my teammates' Nike bat, but I hit a home run, an opposite field home run. I was like Bryce Harper that time at Citi Field when he hit the home run, broke his bat. That's what happened with me at one time in high school. The bat just cracked. Didn't break into two, but it cracked and it created a huge hole in the sweet spot. I felt really bad. I never paid him back for it. But.
Yeah. They got rid of those bats. I did work for the University of Oregon. That's when they, I don't know, whenever that was revitalized, it had to be in the late, 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. Yeah, it was Nike, right? Nike helped them raise all the money for a new stadium and to bring the sport back, because Oregon didn't have baseball for, I think it was like 25 years. It got cut.
Yeah, Oregon State was the dominant program.
Oregon State was great, yeah.
And Pac-12 for a long time. I mean, they were better than, Jacoby Ellsbury, to name a few, name one guy, but there was a lot of guys that came through there, that Oregon State program. They were better than USC, UCLA for a long time, even better than Cal State Fullerton, and they're a baseball school, a baseball powerhouse. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they won the College World Series, I think, 3 times in 6 years. I don't remember. Pat Casey, legendary coach. They haven't quite been as good since he stepped down. But anyway, Oregon had a big deal. They were getting a ton of money from Nike to use those bats, and they had sweet uniforms and shoes and all that stuff. Anyway, they were able to get out of that. The bats were so bad after 2 or 3 years that they were able to get out of that contract that they signed. And then Nike just shut it down. They stopped making bats altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were not great.
No, they were really, Again, it felt like they were made of Teflon. Hey, coming up on the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast in future episodes, we will be doing a couple of mechanical breakdowns. Jeff McNeil coming up in a couple of weeks, breaking down his swing. By the way, I mentioned, what was it, last week, my favorite hitters that I like watching on a daily basis across Major League Baseball. Luis Ariz, I forgot about him of the Marlins. I love his swing. I love watching. I can watch him hit all day long. I love his swing.
Yeah, he's an aggressive dude.
Yeah. We'll be breaking down Paul Goldschmidt as well and talking about how to counteract pitcher strategies. We're going to talk today about moving a hitter's feet and how to counteract that if you're a hitter. It's the pitcher's goal to move a hitter's feet. We'll be talking about that today as well. But those are some upcoming topics on the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. And if you have not subscribed, please do. If you're a new listener, Apple, Google, Spotify, you can watch the show on YouTube as well, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast YouTube page. I want to couple of Major League Baseball notes I want to bring up with you. By the way, we didn't bring up the pitch clock last week. I love the fact that the games are going as quick as they are for whatever reason. I feel like it's a lot easier to watch. Like I can consume a game a lot easier for whatever reason. And I don't feel like the game is rushed. Some people may feel that way. I don't. I tell you, these rules that have been put into place, I don't know if Major League Baseball knew that they did this or not, but these new rules that have been put into place, the pitch clock, for example, it's made the game faster and it's made it easier for fans like you and I, or people who watch the game every day, like myself, crazy people like myself who watch the game every day, consume it every day, watch it when they're warming up in the gym, or listen to games on the audio feed when we're working out or in the car, whatever. It's made, I don't know if Major League Baseball intended for this. I think the rules were intended for the casual fans, to get them back and to get more of the casual fans to be interested in baseball. But I think these new rules have really helped the diehard fans and gotten them more so into the game and being able to consume more games because the games are actually going a lot quicker. I like it personally.
Yeah, I do. I like the pace for sure. I think they did it. I mean, again, it's still kind of a work in progress and everybody's getting used to it, but it's, hey, 30 minutes is 30 minutes. That's big, and not having guys step out and fixing everything. And pitchers, the same thing, stepping off the mound and so many trips, stepping off and throwing to first and stepping off and throwing to first and trips to the mound. And I don't know. We'll see if it's good for the game or not, but it's definitely good for cutting time off of the game.
Yeah. Up. I see. I saw it. You moved the camera. I thought we were going to go a week without doing
we
that.
almost made it. Yep, I hit it again.
We almost didn't have a microphone on your end this week, too.
Yeah, mute. That mute button. What a killer, man.
Also, too, for those who may disagree from what I said a couple of weeks ago, how baseball is not fair and the game never evens out, I want to point to a statistic that Buster Olney tweeted about. Jason Hayward's line drive out. This was earlier in the week against, I think, the Dodgers. The exit velocity on that line drive was 99.6. It went 180 feet. And it was a diving catch. I don't know who made the catch. Doesn't really matter. But it was an out. Okay. Yeah. David Peralta of the Dodgers, he broke up a perfect game earlier in the week against the Cubs.
Right.
He hit the perfect game breaking hit, that little looper that he hit, this whatever you want to call it. The exit velocity, it was 32.9 miles per hour. It was a squibber. I should say it was a squibber. It went 3 feet. Baseball's not fair, and it will never even out, especially if you're a hitter. So you better be dedicated to this game, and you better understand failure because
it's coming for you.
Out. Yeah. Crazy statistic. That is, by the way, dedication, the topic on this week's cross-functionality, talking about dedication, and not just dedication to your craft, but having that fortitude to get through the tough times. And sometimes, as Cassie put it this week, be a little bit lonely when you need to work and you need to get better. It's not an easy road. You need to be dedicated, especially in all athletics, if you want to play at a high level. That's why athletes tend to flock together. But you also better be dedicated, especially when it comes to baseball and softball and these skill position sports, because any skill position sport is very, very hard. We talked about that this week on cross-functionality.
Yes. Do you want me to comment on it? Oh, you already talked about it.
Well, I already talked about it.
Yeah,
if you want to comment, you can. If
you
not,
can go to dark places real quick in this game. And then really any sport where you're put in the spotlight. Baseball and softball and And golf, you're kind of out there by yourself. When you're in the batter's box or you're on the mound, it's you. Everyone's looking at one person. And
Mhm.
if you make a mistake, then it's magnified and you have to be able to say, "Man, I messed that up," right? I got a bad jump on that ball, or as a catcher, I didn't get my glove quick enough, or as a pitcher, God, I couldn't find the strike zone, and you're going to let your teammates down, but you're also going to help your teammates out, and your teammates are going to have rough times too, and everybody's got to work together on a team to make it work because everyone's going to make mistakes, and it's how can we
Yeah,
bounce back?
exactly. So that's our topic this week on cross functionality. So be sure to subscribe to that podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, or watch the show on the Softball Strength Academy YouTube page as Cassie, Riley, Bosch, and I discussed players having dedication. She made a great quote, by the way. And that's going to be the title of this week's episode. It is the title of this week's episode. Everything has a price, which is very, very true. Hey, speaking of college, by the way, Cassie attended Alabama. So
Mhm.
segue. Vanderbilt, for those worried, I was thinking about this earlier in the week, for those worried about the transfer portal and all that shit that's surrounding that, just want to note here that Tim Corbin, one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the country, he might be baseball's version of Nick Saban someday. He's younger than Nick Saban, a guy who didn't collect a paycheck coaching baseball until what, the age of 35, I think it was. Turned out to be the best coach in all of college baseball for many years, still is. For context purposes, Vanderbilt has not recruited from that portal yet. So maybe all hope is not lost,
Hmm.
Mr. Epstein.
What about LSU, who's the number one team in the country and dominating everyone?
I guess, I don't know.
They own the portal.
Sound a little mad about that. Who has more national titles, Vanderbilt or LSU? Drink your water and then get back to me.
I don't know.
All right, then.
I don't know. Vanderbilt
Who has
doesn't have.
who has had countless major leaguers come through their program? Vanderbilt or LSU?
I don't know.
Vanderbilt. Come on now.
I don't know. Did
The only
Bregman go?
last
Bregman?
LSU Tiger I can think of who attended LSU, made it to the major leagues, DJ LeMahieu. I'm sure there's more out there. So email me,
Bregman.
Jimbo Podcast 21. Who?
Bregman.
Bregman. Okay,
He's
that's
pretty
two.
good.
Yeah. David
There
Price is
might be
pretty
more.
good.
Swanson.
Swanson went to Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what it
I mean,
is.
I'm just telling
Hey,
you.
I like both those teams. I don't like the portal, but I like both those teams.
All I'm saying is that the best coach ever in college
Yeah,
baseball, one of them, doesn't recruit from the transfer portal. That's all I'm
right.
saying.
It's pretty cool.
Damn, man, coming down my throat.
It's pretty cool.
So there's all hope isn't lost.
No.
I think, unless you want to look at it like App and LSU.
They're so dominant. Poor LSU. So I think I was watching a little bit of the LSU game. They had two players they were talking about, two or three starters that were there last year.
Yeah.
That were good. Like they hit well over 300. They had extra base hits and whatnot. They're not even playing this year because they had so many guys transfer in that were like the best.
Right. Tommy White being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy Tanks. Mm-hmm. Tommy Tanks.
Anyway.
All right. Well, moving on with the show here. Let's get into today's topic, episode 138, discussing moving a hitter's feet and how hitters can counteract that pitcher's strategy. If you have any questions, email us, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Reach out to us on social media at Jim Tara and at Epstein Hitting. Moving a hitter's feet, how pitchers do that. It used to be the old adage, just throw inside, a little bit off the corner, make the hitter move their feet a little bit, maybe a fastball across the belt, making them limbo out of the way. But with all the new technology now that's out there for coaches right at their disposal, they get the opportunity to look at the horizontal and vertical movement of pitches. And now they can better understand what those pitchers throw and how to move a hitter's feet, how to counteract a hitter's strategies. It used to be, hey, you know what? You throw inside, move the hitter's feet, you open up the other side of the plate.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times now, and I saw this the other night, I see it almost every day with certain hitters. When pitchers are going really well, they're moving the hitter's feet, even on pitches that are low and away, sliders low and away, pitches that are high and away, fastballs that are up and in, fastballs that are low. They're changing these pitchers, the eye levels of hitters, and in turn, they're moving those hitters' feet. And hitters have become When a pitcher's going well and the pitcher is moving that hitter's feet, the hitters become very jumpy. Hitters never want to be jumpy at the plate. No successful hitter is jumpy at the plate.
None. No, you have, and I think it's an old adage, right? Hey, move his feet a little bit. Don't let that player get too comfortable in there. They've gotten good swings off of your good pitches. You gotta move their feet. You gotta make them uncomfortable. And I think that's what it used to mean, that Nolan Ryan throwing, buzzing somebody's chin, something like that. Chin music would come to mind. But you're right, moving feet is essentially making a hitter uncomfortable. Okay. If you have a hitter that's just dug in there and they're not budging on breaking balls and they're not budging on fastballs and they're just very comfortable and locked in, a good catcher or a good pitcher is like, okay, we got to move their feet somehow. And sometimes it's a slider down and in from an opposite-handed pitcher. Sometimes it's a fastball running up and in. Sometimes, like you said, it's you throw something at their front hip and make them kind of jackknife away. But what it comes down to is you said it. It's moving their eyes. You don't want hitters to lock in. If you get a pitcher that throws a ball up and in, pitchers don't want to throw the same spot multiple times in the same tunnel. If they're trying to throw an inside fastball, they're probably not going to throw more than one or two. And as a catcher, what you want to do, and I learned this from a young age, catching and having good people around me that taught me how to. So Bruce Bochy and Jeff Torborg were my two coaching mentors as a young kid. I would sit and watch games. They would come over and when they were in town, or Bruce lived in town, and we would watch like off-season games. Like he would, they would bring, because obviously they were still coaching at the time, and we would go through, what do you think here? What do you think there? And it was all mental. It was nothing was physical, but every pitch has a meaning. If I call a pitch a fastball down and away, and that pitcher misses too far down and away, and that hitter kind of leans into it down and away, I just changed their eyes. I just changed, even though it wasn't a strike, even though it wasn't a very good pitch, what did it do to that hitter? Now, all of a sudden, let's run something inside on them. Okay, now all of a sudden they're looking away because you got them leaning that way. Even if you don't hit a perfect spot middle in, you might be able to tie them up. Or vice versa. Hey, we throw something fastball, we'll call a fastball in. We miss. There's nothing better than missing in. Trying to throw a fastball inside. Maybe it's a strike, maybe it's a ball. It ends up being a ball because it's close. Now all of a sudden that hitter is, they're trying to get in on me. I've opened up the entire other part of the plate. I can go with a sinker away, or I can go with something off speed away. So we're trying to work corners for the most part, like corners of the strike zone. So if we miss up and in, we want to go down and away. If we miss down and in, we want to go up and away. Everything is opposite as a pitcher trying to make that hitter feel uncomfortable. Now, you could totally blow your mind by thinking about this as a hitter. Oh my God, they just threw me a pitch low and away. I bet they're going to throw it in now. Well, maybe not. Maybe the book is just to throw you away.
Well, also too, remember that the catcher sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, the catcher could predicate where the pitcher might go next, because the catcher's looking at the hitter and how uncomfortable or comfortable they may be in the box, and they're trying to counteract now what the hitter's strategy may be from pitch to pitch. That's part of the catcher's job, a good catcher's job.
And that's part of that is at the professional level. Unfortunately, we don't let amateur catchers learn like that, and we should. Right. Catchers don't call games in travel baseball or high school. I don't know why. I think we play that to learn. Like, that's why we're playing baseball at a young age, is to learn. And catchers don't really learn if they're just little robots back there. And pitchers don't learn unless you have a conversation about it. But I digress there. Yes, a good catcher will absolutely know what's going on with that hitter. He's watching feet. He knows how their balance is. Are they jumpy? Are they stepping out slightly? Are they diving towards the plate? These are all things we can pick up, but moving the feet is definitely more of a comfort level. Hey, don't get too comfortable. If they move your feet, if you're a hitter and you're in the box and you're trying to take away the pitch middle away, because 80% of the pitches you've seen during the high school season or whatever are middle away, and all of a sudden they move your feet, they're not trying to get you out in. Okay. They're not trying to get you out there. They're trying to make you uncomfortable so they can still go middle away. So it's important to know that, just like anything else we talk about with this podcast, is you have to pay attention during the game. What is that pitcher doing? Not just for the 12 pitches or 8 pitches or 4 pitches you see that game, how is that pitcher throwing other people? How are they throwing other right-handers? How are they throwing other left-handers in the lineup? You have to be able to absorb all of that information to help with your plan when you go to the plate.
So, how do hitters counteract the pitcher's strategy? And you kind of mentioned it there of moving your feet. What can they do? What can they remember that gives them that leg up against that pitcher trying to move their feet?
Yeah, so if you're watching the game and all of a sudden you see a pitcher move someone else's feet, okay,
Hmm.
what was the next pitch after that?
Sure.
Okay. Did they back it up with another fastball in? Ooh, that's sneaky, right? That doesn't usually happen. Or did they go away? So every time they move somebody's feet or they move their eyes, they throw something really far inside. Do they stay inside or are they going to back that up with a changeup? Is usually the likely, depending on, especially if it's an opposite-handed pitcher. So if you're a left-handed hitter and a right-handed pitcher, and they move your feet, then something off speed, they're going to go change up low and away. So what is the tendency of that? So as a hitting coach, I had a little matrix that I used on. I had every hitter in there, and then I had what pitches did they get in what counts, and then I would make notes. Did they move feet? Did they try to get them out with fastballs up, or did they try to just get them to look for fastballs up? So a good hitter or a good hitting coach is absorbing that information. Okay, every time they throw a fastball up and I fouled it off, they would go a little bit higher. Well, that's just good coaching, right? They call it step laddering. Or every time they threw a fastball up, they would come back with a breaking ball in the dirt. Okay, file that one away for my next at bat. So now all of a sudden you go up, it's your second or third time up, and you get a pitch that counts 0-1, and then the next pitch they throw up and in, right? Or they move your eye line or they move your feet. Now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, the last 3 times he's thrown a pitch like that, he's backed up with an off-speed pitch,
Hmm.
especially now the count's 1-1. Boom, I'm going to sit on that off-speed pitch. Maybe my third at bat is the one that matters. Maybe my first at bat of the game didn't. So you have to learn from whether you're successful your first couple of bats or whether you're not successful. That pitcher's going to do the same thing. If he's getting you out or she's getting you out with certain pitches, they're going to keep throwing that. And you can use your past experiences from an hour earlier when that game's on the line now in the 7th inning or the 9th inning, whatever it is. Now all of a sudden we have the edge because we know every time that pitcher moves our feet, they've been throwing this pitch, back to back with it. And
Yeah.
now I'm going to sit on that pitch and I'm not going to miss it. And you know what? Coaches just fall into ruts. Coaches do that all the time. Coaches that call pitches, every time they call a pitch here, they call a pitch high. Or every time they call, there's this. And if we're smart enough and we're paying attention, we could take advantage of that.
Yeah, and that's the key. I guess one of the keys to today's episode, 138, counteracting pitchers moving a hitter's feet. Uh, you have to pay attention and you have to go
Yeah.
off what happened an hour ago rather than just getting upset and angry. I know it's very easy to get upset and angry with the result. You have to understand how the pitcher threw to you and what he may do next and strategize for that and try to be one step ahead.
Yeah, and maybe he just lost the pitch too. Maybe it slipped. Maybe Max Scherzer had a little bit too much sweat going on before he caked on his rosin, and the ball slipped out of his hand, and he moved your feet. Maybe it was accidental, but um, you just have to pay attention, and
Okay.
you have to enjoy the game. If you don't watch games on TV, you're not going to understand any of this. If you just show up and play on the weekends, you're probably not going to understand this. But if you pay attention and you watch games and you listen to commentators on TV when you're watching, if your favorite team's the Yankees or whatever, they're on every single night and you're watching the game and you hear people talking, they're smart. They watch games all the time, and most of the color guys all played and are pretty like A-Rod. People don't like A-Rod. A-Rod says really smart stuff
He does.
when it
Yeah.
comes to pitching and what pitchers are trying to do to you. So listen to those experiences and try to put them to use. But we had a meeting with a team with my kids team, and they're young and they're starting to see changeups now and some curveballs right at age 12. And so I asked the team, we have a hitter, she swung at the first pitch and it was a changeup, right? And she swung through it and she's our best hitter. And so I asked her, I said, have you, how many changeups have you seen this year? And she said, oh, probably, 20 or 30. I've seen a decent amount. I said, how many times have they thrown 2 changeups in a row to you? And she says, I don't think they've thrown 2 changeups in a row to me. I said, okay. So what would you look for after you swung and missed at a changeup on the next pitch? She's like, well, I'd look for a fastball. And then I said, did you do that? No, you were late on the fastball. That happened after. But know that. Or maybe it's just the opposite. If now all of a sudden people are starting to back up changeups and they're throwing 2 in a row, right? Which you don't see. But getting young kids to think about that is really important because they don't know. They just go up to the box and hit. So giving them a plan and giving them an idea of what may be happening. How did this pitcher having a conversation after the first at bat? Where is this pitcher throwing you? Oh, every pitch I saw was either on the outside corner or off the plate. Let's take it away. Crowd the plate, dive into it. Take away that outside corner so it feels like it's down the middle. If they start throwing you inside, you can blame me as the coach for telling you to do that. Okay. But then they're like, oh, okay. But, what do we talk about? Don't just hit your head against the wall and expect different outcomes, right? You can't do the same thing over and over again. So just be smart, have conversations with your players. I know a lot of people that listen to this are parents and coaches. Talk through it. Game Changer is so great now. You can look at all your kids at bats and where the pitches were and what kind of movement were they, what were we thinking this at bat? And it can be a really good tool for kids to be able to go back and look at their at bats and kind of relive them. And they can talk to you about what were you thinking? I was looking for this here. Usually they're not looking for anything. But hey, you were late on this first pitch. Why were you late on the next one? It was a fastball. Oh, I shouldn't be. That's right. Like if you're late on a fastball, they're probably not going to throw you an off-speed pitch. Okay, they're going to speed.
Right. They don't want to speed up your bat.
They don't want to speed up your bat. So, let's go ahead. Let's make that adjustment. Get that bat head out in front. So,
yeah,
conversations, communication. I don't care what it is in life, but communication in sports and baseball and softball with your parents, with your coaches, very, very important.
And don't just work on, Cassie used this a couple of weeks ago on cross functionality, this example. Don't just set up a tee in the middle of the plate and then hit balls back up the middle and feel good, right? You got to really challenge yourself. There's this thing in the gym when it comes to fitness called progressive overload. I'm sure a lot of people know what I'm talking about. It's a strength system, gets people stronger for those who don't know what I'm talking about. And it's supposed to challenge your muscles. It's supposed to challenge your central nervous system, challenge yourself as a hitter, and work on the things you need to work on. If that's a mental approach, if it's trying to counteract any pitcher strategy, or if it's just simply working on a fundamental or trying to pull the baseball, or trying to go the other way, let the ball get deep, take 10 pitches to the outer half of the plate, let it get deep, go the other way, release the bat from the bat leg early. Do things like that. Don't just work on pitches right down the middle or just go into the cage and start like I do now. I don't play anymore. I could, but you go into the cage and you just start hitting balls, whatever, willy-nilly. Understand, have a plan as you approach your practice. And that part of it is trying to counteract pitcher strategy and to feast on their weaknesses, just like they're trying to do to you.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, challenge yourself. Is front toss is great. Tees are great to warm up if you're working on one little mechanical thing. But, I had lessons all morning this morning. And one of the players that I was working with was, let's challenge your swing, whatever the stress level is in a game. I need to try to create that stress level here in the cage. Okay. We're right in the middle of the season. We're not going to make any swing changes. We're not going to try to do a different stride or do a different leg kick or do a different swing plane, right? In a stressful environment, I've seen your swings in games, right? They're sending me swings. This is what shows up. Let's try to create that same environment here. And I'm going to challenge you, right? And that's what we did. I challenged him the whole day. He had a rough week last week. He's been hitting the ball good, but he had a rough week and he was getting in his own head and he was thinking, oh, I got to change this and change that. It was like, no, let's have a session where we're competitive. Everything off the machine is competitive. I made him step out between pitches. He had to step out. I would adjust the machine slightly in to out. Sometimes I would slow the speed down and we created a game environment. And keeping it fresh like that doesn't mean you have to do that all the time. But I'm telling you, during the season, creating a competitive environment in there where we're not just hitting cookies off front toss. Like I could look good off front toss right now. Okay. Doesn't mean I can go out and hit in the game, but creating that environment is very, very useful for your players. There's a time and space for everything. there's for tee work and mechanical changes and rhythm changes and whatnot. But when we're in a season, we want to try to create that competitive environment so that they're comfortable when they get into games.
All right, so good stuff this week. Episode 138, Moving a Hitter's Feet. If you have any questions, email us, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com, and reach out to us on social media at Jim Tara, at Epstein Hitting. And you could, what else? What am I forgetting here? Subscribe. Did I say that already? I did.
Sure, people can subscribe. That's good.
Subscribe to the show and watch the show on YouTube, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast YouTube page. Next week,
Yep.
episode 139, the requirements of a successful coach. Successful baseball
Ooh.
coach, successful hitting coach, the requirements. Oh man, we could do like a 2-part series on this. We
Yeah.
did like an hour episode last week.
Yeah.
Maybe a 2-hour episode next week.
Yep.
Maybe, probably not. But
that's a good one.
It'll be a good one. Requirements of a successful hitting coach.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And there's a lot in that. I'm actually building it'll probably be ready this fall, but a kind of a course content on how to be a successful coach at the amateur level. Okay, not just at the professional level, but the amateur level. You have to have the right personality to communicate with kids, and you have to have the right information to help those kids. So I'm putting together courses and videos and really a big knowledge base to help people help their team, help people help their kids. Because if we can get them the right information at a young age, not only are they going to have fun, but they're going to play longer. And that's the key to the longevity of this wonderful game.
Yeah. All right. So that's next week, episode 139. Any questions, email us, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com, and we will talk to you next week. Have a great week. Take care, everybody.